find myself in a lion's den as a beggar with an outstretched hand. I find myself in a western land asking for bread from dishonest men. Do not fear the lion's den. You'll be brought up to your father's land, and my cry is a longing of the nation man to return to its promised land, going home again out of this lion's den. I find myself in a western trend. Here I am, back again, winding around this lonesome bend as a stranger in a foreign land, singing, do not fear the lion's den. You'll be brought up to your father's land, and my cry is a longing of an ancient man to return to his promised land, going home again out of this lion's den.
The song you just heard is Lion's Den by Levi Robin. It is one of my answers to this week's self-care Q&A. All right, everyone. For our subscribers on YouTube, you now have a video because, as a Washington Post report just confirmed, we already know that Elon Musk, the man-child of who benefited from the brutality of apartheid to enrich himself to become an oligarch who carries way too much influence over our lives, and a level of influence that should be legislated out of existence and absolutely can be, which is something we should be building towards, fighting for. Anyway, so Elon Musk intentionally suppresses many news sites that he doesn't like. Gaslit Nation's reach on Twitter has gone down dramatically since Elon Musk has bought the site, because people with way too much money are incredibly bored. And so they do stupid stuff like this at the detriment of the rest of us, and that's where we are. So as a result, Gaslit Nation is making a pivot, as they say, to video. I am super thrilled about this, as you can see, but we're going to get through it together. The information we present on the show is extremely important. We need to reach as many people as possible. We've actually had our listeners saying, like, why aren't you doing more for outreach to get the message out there? And the good news is I am a filmmaker, so I can do fun stuff with video, even making like little mini documentaries with some of our episodes to try to get our shows, get our information out there to the widest audiences as possible. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do to offset the destruction wrought by Elon Musk, David Sachs, and the rest of the PayPal libertarian mafia that is in open warfare against our democracy and little scrappy communities like ours. But we're going to push back. We're going to be creative, and we're going to out-organize them, and we're going to win. Ultimately, that is the plan. So fuck Musk, fuck Russia, and so on. So in this episode, I'm going to be doing the Gaslit Nation Self-Care Challenge, but first, some quick announcements. We have a live taping in New York City at the independent bookstore P&T Knitwear. It's going to feature myself, Russian mafia expert Olga Lotman, and historian Ruth Ben-Ghiat who wrote the best-selling book Strong Men. So the three of us are going to be in conversation. You can watch that live. There's no live stream, and it's free. I'm going to do a special meetup with Gaslit Nation listeners who make this show possible, because without you, there would be no show. And for that community, our Patreon community, I will send you guys exclusively some meetup information for the early evening of Monday, September 18th, near P&T Knitwear in Lower Manhattan somewhere. I believe it's like a Soho area. And so if you contribute to support the show at any level, you'll get this information. If you don't yet support the show and you want to support our efforts to expand into video, which is so necessary right now, obviously, and we're going to do it. It's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun. So to support the show, sign up at patreon.com/gaslit. patreon.com/gaslit, and you can join at any level, and we're so grateful for all those who make Gaslit Nation possible. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We need independent journalism now more than ever, and we love this community so much. It's a really powerful creative outlet. I love all the people that write to us and tell us about all the ways the show has impacted them. It was a pure joy with lots of fun surprises, meeting listeners at the live event on August 5th in New York. You can, if you missed that one, you can come on September 18th, Monday, 7 p.m. at PNT Knitwear with Olga and Ruth, myself, and it's free. And then we'll do a special meetup for the Patreon community, because it's because of you we're all here. Thank you, thank you. All right, so before I jump into the Gaslit Nation self-care Q&A, I wanted to share a quick personal story, because this has been a summer of doom. The tragedy, the man-made tragedy, the greed-made tragedy, the climate crisis tragedy of Maui, obviously Maui, the fires in Canada, just the fires in Europe and Italy. And it's very clear, it's beyond clear, it's been clear for a while now that it's impact time. The climate crisis, it's like a slow-moving asteroid that's hitting us now. And I have no doubt people have had a hard summer, feeling demoralized, just feeling like this dread, this anxiety rising up, learning to live with that, this sort of collective grief that we've all been forced to learn to live with in these recent years, the grief of what we're losing from the climate crisis, the rights we're losing in our democracy, the pandemic and how that has impacted us, this disinformation crisis, how that's separating families. It's real grief. It's real collective grief. We live with it every day. It's pulsing through us. It's there. It's the background noise. It's the forefront noise. It's inside us. It's around us. Sometimes we're forced to suppress it because of the company we keep, because of the jobs we have, but it's there. It's real. And I want to share something that I've been reflecting on a lot in processing my own grief this summer, dealing with my own collective grief with all of you, and also my own personal grief in my life and so on. And it's been a really, really, another dark night of the soul sort of summer. And the world is going through that as well right now, as we're all witnessing, obviously. And so I've been reflecting a lot back on a particularly difficult time in my life. I graduated UC Davis College, wanting to be this community organizer. I was going to protect the world from a second term of George W. Bush. I was really determined to stop him in that election. And of course, we failed in 2004. And not only that, I had so thrown myself into that campaign that the college boyfriend I'd been with for 4 years, that relationship fell apart, and that was over. And the rebound that I jumped to while working on the campaign, it was some feminist hippie guy, at least on the outside, who privately one night, days before the election, was so upset because the writing was on the wall, we're going to lose, the polling showed we're going to lose, and he took it out on me. He physically assaulted me, knocking me unconscious, and I woke with a big bump on my head. And being the strong, determined, independent person that I am, I never in a million years would imagine I would become a statistic of domestic violence, of assault like this. And I was young and living, as out of college. It's a really scary time for young people who are coming out of the sandbox of college out into the bigger world. So I didn't know what to do with this. I had no preparation for this. And it was right in the final days of a political campaign that I felt had to be prioritized. I had to shove down my needs of having to deal with my own personal crisis for the broader crisis of my country and the world, which was I must suppress how I feel about what happened to me, hide it, suppress it, and fight to stop George W. Bush. That must come first. And I didn't understand the price I would pay for that, because the PTSD, the trauma of that event haunts you, and all sorts of life triggers that would come over the next decade I'd have to learn and understand those and get blindsided by them. And it was it was a trauma that stuck around for longer than I ever imagined. And I do believe that parents, no matter who you're raising, however they identify, like all boys and girls have to understand that at some age, whatever age you feel is appropriate, to how to avoid situations like this and what to do should it happen, because sometimes you cannot avoid them. Sometimes, it's clearly never your fault when this happens, but every single person needs to be trained. Like, what do you do when it happens? I had no training. I did not have any training. And all I knew was just to be strong and march on. And that was it, to shove it down. And that's what I did. And to sort of dust myself off after we lost that election, I took a newspaper job. And the managing editor at this newspaper, at an alternative weekly, had a track record, I was told, of fucking the young interns on staff. And I broke that track record. And so he took it out on my writing. He would close the door, bring me in and close the door and yell at me and find all sorts of excuses to like dress me down verbally. And it was so difficult to work in that hostile environment, obviously, that I would start dressing in all gray to work. I try to like shrink myself and become invisible. I went from graduating college like a peacock, like bright flowery colors, like happy sunshine. I'm going to take on the world, to just trying to disappear. And what ended up happening was I had essentially a nervous breakdown, and my mom had to drive up and take me home. And this was all happening in Portland, Oregon. So my mom had to drive me back home to like pack up my life and drive me home